Yo, sometimes life calls for a change. Not fake, just different. It'll show you a different way. And right now, I'm on to my different way. I can promise you this is the same Spann, but the reporting is over. I'd like to welcome you to the Mrs. Spann official podcast. Let's go. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Mrs. Spann official podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Spann, and we are doing this here again on the 24th of June, man. This is actually the second episode this week, so like, you know what? Yeah, man, because we don't get this level of consistency, man. So shout out to your boy. Shout out to you. No, man. Yo, it's been a lot of shit going on this week, man. And I've actually had a chance to pay some level of attention to some of this stuff, man. So we're going to talk about some of this stuff. But of course, before we do that, I do have to remind you guys how to get in touch with us over here at the Mr. Spann official podcast and let your voice be heard. You can go ahead and hit us up at our hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 313-288-0485. Leave us those voicemail messages. And of course, those messages will get replayed here live on the show and responded to in kind. And if you're watching us live and you want to chop it up with your man Spann, hit that hotline up and you're going to talk to us here live on the show. You're going to be on the show, man. For real. Like, it ain't like the radio. You ain't got to wait on hold for an hour. Nah, I'm going to put you on. But yeah, man, area code 313-288-0485. You can also hit us up at our email at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead and leave us those emails. And of course, those emails will get read here and replied to here live on the show. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio. Those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live on the show. We appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. Doesn't cost you a dime, just a couple of minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mrs. Spann official podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network specifically. And also, man, we own Spotify, so you can do that shit on Spotify too. I don't know why I keep forgetting to mention that shit, but we are on Spotify, so you can do that on Spotify. And you can watch us live on Facebook and YouTube, because we doing this here live in effect right now on Facebook and YouTube. Shout out to your boy Malika. Yeah, man. So we doing this live, and that's one way you can get in touch with the show, man. Leave those comments. We may, highlight one of your comments if you're watching the show live and respond to you while we're doing a show like that. So that's another way to get in touch with us over here, right? Also, you can go to our website at www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can vote in the polls when we decide to put those polls up. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really do appreciate every dime over here at the Mrs. Spann official podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network, man. Real talk. But yo, man, I think I got most of the business out of the way, man. I hope y'all week has been good, man. I've had an up and down week. This week had some family medical issues and whatnot to deal with, and some personal things that kind of happened this week, man. So it's been kind of down. It started off kind of down, but now is working its way back up, man. Like one of the things my therapist kind of talked to me about was like just kind of like trying to level off how you feel, man. And once you understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling, man, like try to map out what triggers you and stuff like that, man. I really do appreciate this therapy thing, man, real talk, because it's putting me in a much better place to deal with shit than I ever have been. So like I would implore any dude who's like anybody, man, real talk. Like I know, like back in the day, man, we used to just talk about, man, just pray on it. The Lord ain't gonna put nothing on you that you ain't gonna be able to bear. And I mean that's cool and all, but I got some auxiliary tools too. And like my therapist is my auxiliary tool, and I definitely use that motherfucker. And I definitely try to take heed to some of the lessons and stuff like that I'm learning in therapy. So like, yeah, it kind of keeps me from being too down, right? So yeah, man. But like I said, we got some stuff to talk about, man. There's been a thousand different things going on, but breaking fucking news though, because Yeah, that goddamn that submarine. That submarine, the rich ass white folks got on to go down to go visit the Titanic. Yeah, apparently they think that damn thing goddamn imploded, bruh. Yeah, imploded, not exploded, imploded. That motherfucker, like, boom, on itself. I mean, here's the deal, right? What kind of hubris do you have to have? Excuse me. What kind of hubris do you have to feel as though, like, you know what? I got so much money and I got so much time on my hands. You know, I'm gonna just go down here in this boat, this thing, this man done put together. He controlling this with one of them Bluetooth controllers from GameStop, and we gonna go down to the Titanic and we gonna go look at this motherfucking wreckage from over 100 years ago. And yeah, but he controlling this with the what's the name? And like, as you start seeing some of the attitudes that these people were exhibiting, especially the guy who I think was like the CEO of the company before they went down there and shit, talking about how, like they had fired a guy who was saying like, I don't think this shit is safe. And they were like, yeah, safety? Who the fuck needs that? Right? Like that's like the amount of hubris, bro. Like the amount of cojones that you, like these, hey, like if nothing else, man, I applaud their sense of like not fear. You know what I'm saying? My sense of self-preservation is too profound, man, to be doing shit like that, man. Like I feel like, yo, man, I don't want to be on this earth and when I die be like low key kind of a laughing stock to the rest of the world. Like, look at these dumb motherfuckers. Because that's how people received it. You know what I'm saying? People was like, man, these yeah, but that's how folks received it. Like, yo, man, look at these dumb motherfuckers. They really went down there and did that shit, man. They really took their dumb ass down there with that. And then like, somebody told me that, it looked like they went down there in a water heater, bro, like an oversized water heater. And that's kind of what it looked like, man. Like you had 5 people. The saddest thing was though, there was a 19-year-old kid on there who apparently was on the ill-fated Titan ship or whatever. And the only reason he was down there was because he wanted to be close to his dad. He wanted to, not let his dad down, but like, and I guess, him and his dad, they went out together, but I'm sure he was like, Dad, you lived your life. I could have lived mine. Like, can you imagine like being in hell? I mean, like, wherever they are, if they're in purgatory, they waiting on they stamps or whatever, cause what if Jesus got like TSA up in heaven and stuff, and you got to have like your passport or whatnot, and you ain't got enough stamps or something to get in, like in the what's the name? Like, what if that was a thing? Like, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, what if that's the thing? And you in the line and you waiting and you and your dad arguing like, yo, bro, we didn't have to be here, man. Like, I mean, you lived your life. I could have just been out here. I didn't even get a chance to like go and be a father, go and like have kids and a wife and stuff like that. You did all of that shit. Now I'm here. Now I don't get to do none of that. Fuck you, man. And then like, because he having an argument in line for having TSA, he don't get to come in. You know what I'm saying? And like they got like, like the henchmen and shit that come down from like hell or whatever. Like, hey man, come get your guy. Like that's kind of crazy. That's I'm going to hell for that one. Fuck. Yeah. But yeah, man, 5 people dead on some real the other thing I thought was like real interesting about this too was the fact that they had been talking about, like, for days they were talking about how like there was so much oxygen left, right? Like, they're operating on like 40 days or 40 hours of oxygen. They got 40 hours of oxygen left. Meanwhile, these motherfuckers was already gone, like dead, just dead. Because it's sad, man. It's sad. It's fucked up. It's sad. And I know, like, a lot of folks have been making a lot of jokes. I mean, even including your boy here just now. But like, I think it's because most folks can't fathom just totally ignoring all of the goddamn safety precautions that you would have to do. You would have to go on to something like this, realizing that the dude who was like selling y'all on this was navigating this shit with a goddamn Bluetooth controller from GameStop. And that's the other thing, right? That's the other thing. Like, I saw people who were talking about how rich these folks were, right? And I think this is a thing that like that really is something that folks should consider. I saw people talking about how rich these people were, and they gotta be smarter than that. And I gotta tell y'all, man, smarts and riches aren't necessarily inclusive to each other, man. Just because the motherfucker is rich doesn't necessarily mean they smart. You know how many rich motherfuckers just kind of fell into their money? You know what I'm saying? You know how many rich people just like because they got money just feel like they could just do anything because they got money, because they're surrounded by people who want some of that shit off of them, so then they enable them to do every fucking thing else. They don't have to be smart, bro. And I think that is one of the things, right? So like when you are a smart person and you aren't rich, people just kind of like discount the things that you say as if you might not necessarily know what you're talking about because you haven't figured out a way to monetize on that. But I really need folks to like disassociate or disabuse themselves of the notion that just because a motherfucker is rich means they smart. That ain't it, right? If this doesn't show you that, I don't know what will, right? If this does not show you that, I don't know what will. So yeah, man. Unfortunately, rest in peace to the 5 people who were on that ship. I don't know who. I know there's folks who saying that they would sue the company and stuff like that. But like, man, I don't know, man. Like these people willingly, they went on this shit, man. And when that motherfucker broke out the controller, I'd just be like, all right, bro, we out. I ain't getting on that. Like real talk, we out. I mean, we not doing this. You know what I'm saying? Bro, it wasn't even like a PS5 controller. It wasn't even like a Xbox Elite controller. Like, at least you pay a little bit more bread for those. Like, it wasn't even one of those, bro. It was a straight up $20 ass Bluetooth controller, man. And he going to the depths of the ocean with that shit. Crazy. But that shit happened this week, right? Now another story where we at. That happened this week, man. So for those of you who's following sports, you may be familiar with some things that have been going on in the world of the NBA. And there's a young lady by the name of Moriah Mills, and she's allegedly an ingenue, if you will, of Zion Williamson, who's a often unavailable player for the New Orleans Pelicans, right? She's been like she's been all over fucking social media after he had a baby announcement. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. He had a baby announcement with him and his new girlfriend, and like he's happy to be a father. They did the gender reveal and everything. And Moriah Mills was on Twitter on the warpath, bro, for like a week straight. Like she was just airing all his shit out to the point where like eventually she started threatening revenge porn. And you know what? When you get to revenge porn, that shit is against the law, right? And eventually got to a point where even it was too much for Elon Musk. And what he eventually just did was
delete all that shit. Delete all that shit. That's playing with you, piggy.
He deleted all her shit because he straight up, he got rid of her goddamn account, man. He got rid of her account. Yeah, so he got rid of her account. She suspended off of Twitter, and somehow, some way, even though she's not allowed to post on Twitter no more, I'll be damned if Moriah Mills wasn't trending on Twitter again. Because now Moriah Mills has went on ahead and gotten she went out and got a tattoo of Zion Williamson's name on her face.
Makes me sick, motherfucker, how far we done fell.
Yeah, so let me pull this video up so you guys can watch right along with your boy Spann, because there's video of this shit. So let me go ahead and get this for y'all. And I'm gonna add this to the screen here. Let's do that there. And let's see what she got going on here, y'all.
So I know it's real. Tap my fucking name on you, so I know it's real.
I know it hurts, but I ain't trying to hear it. Cause when I'm not
Tap my name on you, girl, so I know it's real. Tap my fucking name on you, so I know it's real.
I know it hurts, but I ain't trying to hear it. Cause when I'm not
all right, so yeah, they doing that's a YouTube short, but like mostly just
Dum did it.
Yeah, man. So she went and she got Zion's name tattooed on her face. So which leads to the question, right? Like Moriah Mills had a career as a porn actress, right? She was in the adult film industry and everything. She if you're looking at her, you can tell she's had quite a bit of plastic surgery done and everything else. But one of the things that folks were really talking about was, whether or not Zion Williamson might have put that badang on her. like it must have been epic for a former porn star to be so torn over the fact that you know, he's moved on, right? Like like if he can get her to act like this, and like, but you know what was funny though is that well, not even necessarily funny. What was interesting was like when I had Cook on a couple weeks ago, man, and we were talking about like her the interviews that she was doing. There was like that interview that she did on, well, like, you know, she stood up on Wendy Williams and she talked about how she didn't have any girlfriends because the women around her were jealous of her, and you know, Wendy kind of pointed out the obvious, like, well, yeah, you done did a lot of shit to your body and you draw a lot of attention. And so, yeah, that could be an issue. But, you know, be true to yourself and that sort of thing. But then she went on another British television show and she talked about how the women in her life don't trust her around their boyfriends and husbands. Excuse me. Because their boyfriends and husbands were like, you know, when she would come around, they would look, because obviously this woman is looking for some level of attention. And this is where I bring that back, because like, even though it's negative attention, even though it's, you know, is not the right, you know, you would think it would not be the right kind of attention that someone would want. We're living in an age where attention is currency. And so despite the fact that she is banned from Twitter, that her Twitter account has been shut down, she somehow still found a way to get this attention by going to get this tattoo of Zion Williamson on her face. And so we're talking about Moriah Mills again. And I really feel like, as much as I don't want to talk about Moriah Mills, I feel like we should treat her name like Candyman, yo. Like, real talk. I feel like we should treat her name like Candyman. Like, you don't say the name. She who shall not be named is what we should go on calling her from here on out, because it's the attention that gets her going, right? And we're watching somebody go through, you know, what seemingly could be like, she's on Kanye level, like, you know, irrationality right now, right? And, you know, a lot of it is just predicated on, yo, I'm getting the most attention that I've ever gotten for anything ever in my life by talking shit about this man, by airing out or threatening to air out dirty things about this man. They're talking about me, right? Whether they're talking bad about me, whether they're talking good about me, they're talking about me. And I mean, even though I'm talking about her right now on the show, at the same time, I'm conflicted about the reason why we're talking about her, right? But it's like, it's a thing where like, yo, even when you thought this was over, this shit keeps going. Right, the shit keeps going. And so, yeah, man, it's kind of crazy. We got a comment here. Let's see. My man Shane says, you never see a needle touch her face. You know what? You're right. We saw the stencil. We saw the tattoo artist go ahead and try to, like, you know, put the thing up, but we never actually saw the finished product. Right now, I don't follow this woman enough to know whether or not, like, she actually did go through with an actual tattoo. But again, even if she didn't, right? Even if she didn't, it was a means of us talking about her some more. That the attention and the commentary is once again about her, even though they tried to stifle her level of reach by, you know, getting rid of her Twitter account. And so, yeah, man, it's crazy. But again, it's like one of those things where, like, it's the attention. It's the attention that gets people, like, feeling though, like, yo, even if I'm out here doing some dumb shit, at least these motherfuckers paying attention to me. And if they paying attention to me, then that's good. And we're living in an age where, like, that's the thing. The attention is the currency, and that's the crazy thing about it. But I appreciate you, Shane, for writing in, man. But yeah, man, Moriah Mills trending on Twitter despite being banned from Twitter. She done broke the goddamn code, man. She done broke the damn code. Uh-oh. Let me do this here. Okay. Yeah, man. So we got that going on. I also need to do something here. There we go. So we don't have that happen again. But yeah, man. So that's what's going on. But now we got another story. This is actually like an update from the story that we did last week, because we talked about this last week. And you know, it's small, but not really, man, because it kind of points to some of the hypocrisy. And like I thought it was some bullshit, and I knew it was some bullshit when it happened. But the Hamtramck mayor, who was talking about people not knowing anything about his city, this, that, and the other, as if, you know, his city is like so big and everybody wouldn't know anything about it. Like, it's literally sitting in the middle of Detroit. But he was seen posing at near a Pan-African flag after banning after banning any sort of political flags that didn't have anything to do with the state of Michigan, the city of Hamtramck, or the United States of America. All right, so we get the story here. This comes out of the Detroit Free Press. It says that days after helping ban gay pride and other flags from Hamtramck property in a move he says aims to keep the city neutral, Mayor Umar Galib is accused of selective enforcement for allowing a black pride flag to fly at a city park. Photos of Galib were posted on his Facebook page Sunday, standing near a red, black, and green Pan-African flag at a Juneteenth celebration in Hamtramck's Veteran Park. The flag ban passed last week by unanimous city council, and with Galib's support, prevents any religious, ethnic, racial, political, sexual orientation group flags from being flown on the city's public properties. The rule follows rising religious-fueled tensions over a rainbow flag near City Hall. Now, like I told y'all last week, man, a lot of this I felt like was really on some religious sort of shit. Like, it's an immigrant community, largely a Muslim community, but they're very devoutly practicing there. And so I felt like a lot of that was mostly them just like, okay, so the religious aspect was really what was kind of driving what was going on there. It says it was implemented during the first Pride Month since Hamtramck City Council and mayoral posts, including all Muslim officials, members of Hamtramck's LGBTQ plus community, charge it's a wait. It was implemented during the first Pride Month since the Hamtramck City Council and mayoral post included all Muslim officials. Members of Hamtramck's LGBTQ plus community charges discriminatory, pointing to Galib's flexibility for another group's flag as further evidence. The flag ban is already being selectively enforced, said Atlas Songbird of the Hamtramck Queer Alliance. We really hope the mayor and city in general can begin giving the LGBTQ community the same respect they do for all the other diverse communities that are here in Hamtramck. Now, the interesting thing about this, right? So a lot of the criticisms that I get when I talk about, the LGBTQ community in support of, their fight for equal rights and everything else. I oftentimes, I tell people that, like, there are black people within that community. This isn't the thing that, like, where we, black folks aren't a part and also dealing with some of the same issues that they are, some of your white or Latino or whatever else people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community. The black folks who are dealing with that same shit too. And oftentimes what tends to happen is what they'll try to do is, I think with a lot of us, we'll tend to we'll look at the LGBTQ plus community and we're only thinking about white folks. And so when folks are talking about them getting all these rights, right? The LGBTQ community getting all these rights, when really they're just like, shit that you've already taken for granted more often than not. Like, these are things that, like, the right to get married. Like, you already had the right to get married. Nobody was questioning whether or not you should get married. So they want to get married, and now it's a problem for them to do that. Whether or not they should be able to express themselves in public the same way that you do, right? Like, PDAs have always been a thing, but when gay people do PDAs, or when anybody in that community has a PDA, suddenly everybody's turning their nose up because that ain't natural, or whatever the fuck it is that you tell yourself when you see that, right? So, when the Hamtramck mayor, and I said this last week, when that Hamtramck mayor said they were trying to be, like, they wanted to be neutral, they didn't want anybody to have anything. It's like, all right, it sounds good, but y'all chose a curious time, and y'all chose a curious time to implement said policy. And here we are, not even a week later, and the mayor is like by the Pan-African flag on the city property that y'all said wouldn't even allowed to be flown there, right? And so I think it kind of plays into the idea that black folks aren't with this LGBTQ stuff either, right? Despite the fact that there are black folks who are also a part of the LGBTQ community. And I think it plays into that sort of cynicism and bigotry. And yeah, man, like I said, like, it's a small town, man, and I don't want to harp on this too long, but it's just one of those things, bro. It's like, yeah, it's curious that y'all are doing this, especially after all the criticism that I got last week on social media from some folks who were just like, yo, man, you shouldn't be doing this because of, you coming down on a religion. And I will say this till the cows come home, bro. Whether you are Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether you are Christian, whether you are Hindu, whether you're Buddhist, I don't give a shit if you are marginalizing people in the name of your religion. I don't care, bro. Everybody hides their shit behind religion, man. Everybody does this shit. So if you hiding your discrimination behind religion, fuck you. That's how I feel about it. Right? So we got that going on. Now, let's talk about some other stuff, man. Let's talk about some other stuff. Let's get some of these interesting things out of the way. Right? Now, we're gonna go here. We're gonna go here first. Now, Malika Andrews. Malika Andrews is a journalist. She's also a host on quite a few ESPN sports shows, mostly NBA. I want to say NBA Today. I think NBA Countdown. She's all over the place, right? She's one of the young faces of ESPN. But the thing with Malika Andrews that I found over the course of at least the last year, right? Malika Andrews has, but somehow, some way, Malika Andrews keeps finding ways to upset the sports bros, man. Like all the time. Like anytime I see Malika Andrews' name trending anywhere, I know it's because she done said something that'll upset the sports bros, right? And this new story that we got coming out about Malika has to do with the fact that the NBA draft was, if it was the last night or the night before, I don't even know. But the NBA draft just happened, right? And Malika Andrews had the unmitigated gall, the motherfucking temerity to mention that one of the prospects of the NBA draft, one of the guys who would possibly be drafted that night, had been involved in a goddamn murder. Now, she really didn't say that he killed nobody. She didn't say that, he was the gunman, he was the getaway driver, none of that shit. But she did mention that he had some involvement in a case that I want to say was a player from the University of Alabama, that he was involved in a case where somebody ended up dying. A young lady ended up being killed. And so what happened was sports bros all over Twitter, man, was at her motherfucking neck. They was at her neck. So I'm gonna pull this video up, man, because I want y'all to see this. Let me see. Let me take this one down. Let's exit that one, and let's pull up another one. So here we go. Let me do this here, and we gonna do this here. All right, check this out, y'all.
Miller, his name did surface in court testimony involving a case where his former teammate and another man, they've been indicted for capital murder in the fatal shooting in Alabama, has described Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this factoring, if at all, into how teams are evaluating him?
I think it wouldn't be brought up at all if it wasn't for Malika just bringing it up on national television right now.
Now, interestingly enough, if you listen to what she said, she was talking about a potential prospect. And said prospect had been involved in a crime. He was an ancillary person in a crime, or he was attached to the crime some sort of way. She asked an NBA insider, in this case it was Bobby Marks. She asked an insider, "Hey, how does this case affect his draft stock? Essentially, how does this affect how teams are looking at him as a potential player for them? Will this give teams any pause about his involvement with their franchise, with their organization? They're looking to invest millions of dollars into this young talent, right? He's going to get millions. He may be the face of a team at some point. Hey, but before we do that, what about this gun charge or this thing going on in Alabama that he was somewhat attached to, right? How dare she bring that up on draft night? And this is what this particular sports bro is upset about. And I'm gonna kind of rewind a little bit, and I'm gonna let y'all kind of listen in too.
In the fatal shooting in Alabama, has described Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this factoring, if at all, into how teams are evaluating awaiting her.
Well, okay, Comcast, go ahead and
It
tell.
wouldn't be brought up at all if it wasn't for Malika just bringing it up on national television right now. We have a lot to get to in this video, so before we get to the content, we are splitting $1,000 between
Yeah, fuck your ad, bro.
that caught my attention. And in order to really understand what she did, we have to look at her history up until this point. Over the past year and a half alone, Malika Andrews has been kicking people down in what I would like to think is relatively inappropriate scenarios. For example, when Adrian Payne passed away, she did make a note of the fact that Adrian Payne passed away, but she figured while she was discussing the fact that this man has officially lost his life, she said this.
Former Michigan State star Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning. He was waived by the Magic after he was named in a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines that he'd been involved in an alleged assault at Michigan State in 2010. No charges were filed in that case.
Now, interestingly enough, and shout out to the selective editing that he did there, I don't know if you can tell. I mean, I watch television long enough to know, like, when newscasters are reading the goddamn teleprompter. But it looked as though she was reading the goddamn teleprompter, right? Not as though she inserted said, thing about his maybe being involved in a sexual assault, on her own. That was part of the story that they wanted to present on ESPN. Yet in some kind of way, I don't know if they think that Malika Andrews is the managing editor or that she is the managing producer who actually determines what gets spoken about on said shows. But like the sports bros have been on her head for a while now. Now, he said you got to go back into the history. So that's one of the examples that he used to say that Malika Andrews is a problem for sports bros. So here's another one.
Almost a year ago, there was a huge controversy surrounding Ime Udoka and a supposed relationship that he had with another female on the Boston Celtics that resulted in his eventual dismissal. And this was a huge point of contention between Malika Andrews and multiple other analysts on ESPN. For example, she got into a huge argument with Stephen A. Smith.
Now, this particular disagreement with Stephen A. Smith is what really put her in the crosshairs of a lot of sports bros. Right, this particular thing, because as I remember this, with the Ime Udoka situation, where they were talking about Ime Udoka was, he was involved with Nia Long, for a time. He was essentially he was messing around on Nia Long with apparently multiple people within the Boston Celtics organization. One of them had been, I think, the wife of one of the owners or one of the executives, one of the high up executives in the organization. But there was also allegations of sexual assault or sexual harassment that Ime Udoka was allegedly doing to this other woman, right? And so what happened was you had a bunch of guys get on TV, Stephen A., Kendrick Perkins. You had a whole lot of these dudes get on TV and they say, well, we know Ime Udoka's name. Why don't we know the name of the woman who Ime Udoka was supposedly in this consensual relationship with? Now, again, they were saying it was supposedly a consensual relationship. This woman was alleging otherwise, which is why her name was not out there. Because she was alleging that this was a sexual harassment sort of thing. Not that it was consensual, that it was sexual harassment. That's why her name wasn't out there. But all of these dudes was coming out like they wanted to know why we know his name and why we know what he was doing, but why we don't know her name. We need to know her name. Why they needed to know her name for whatever reason, I don't know. But everybody was adamant about her name being publicized for them to consume. So I'm gonna let this go play some more.
When Stephen A. Smith gave his take on the matter,
it said in the numerous news reports it was a consensual relationship that violated organizational policy. So only he is in violation of the company policy. The woman who elected to have a consensual relationship with him is not in violation. He gets to get mentioned and put on Front Street. We don't know who she is.
It didn't take Malika Andrews very long to twist Stephen A. Smith's words around and say that this isn't about pointing the finger. Watch.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger.
Because how dare she, right? Because how dare she? And I remember when this story when this was going on, I saw a bunch of like the little sports shows on YouTube who were really upset with her for having the audacity and the temerity to come at the face of ESPN and say, "Hey, bro, you kind of out of line." Right? She came on his show and tried to check him on his show. I've seen these niggas talk, right? I've seen them do this stuff on these little YouTube channels and stuff, right? So like the actual idea that this woman had the temerity and the gall to check these dudes in this space, this sports space, and say, "Hey, bro, you kind of out of line right here." They didn't like that. They didn't like that. And even you seeing this now with this guy going through his quote unquote history of Malika Andrews.
Stop. Stephen A. Smith definitely took offense to this, and I don't necessarily blame him because Malika Andrews is making him look bad on national television.
He's making himself look bad, bro. He don't need Malika Andrews to do that.
I don't appreciate where you're going with that. I'm not blaming anybody but Ime Udoka. The fact of the matter is, I've said he deserved to be fired if they were going to fire him. If you're not going to fire him, then don't fire him. My issue is all of this being publicized.
This would continue for quite a while between the two, and it would make for a very uncomfortable segment.
We are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
If you thought this was bad, on NBA Today, which is primarily a show that is hosted by Malika Andrews, Kendrick Perkins would make an appearance and give his take on the matter. Now, you need to understand, the concept of a modern sports debate show is different people will have different takes from one another, which will...
Okay. Also, this is where he fucks up, right? NBA Today is not a debate show. It is a show about the current happenings of the NBA. And I could remember there was an exchange between Stephen A. Smith and Dan Le Batard a few months ago, probably like maybe 2 months ago. There was an exchange, and Dan Le Batard kind of like essentially kind of confronted Stephen A. and told him he didn't like what people like Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless had done to sports media, because essentially it's about the debate. It's about the yelling and the hyperbolicness. It's about being bombastic. It's about being in your face. It's about being loud and every that sort of thing, right? To the point where you got this guy on YouTube talking about, hey, NBA Today is a debate show. He thinks it's a debate show. No, it's about the news of the NBA, and they're doing this on ESPN. That's all NBA Today is. It is not a debate show, but he thinks everything on sports media is a debate show. That is a problem, right? That is a problem. If you're not astute enough to understand which one of the shows are debate shows and which one of these shows are not a debate show, NBA Today is just one of those news shows about the NBA. It is not a debate show, but he conceptualizes everything on there as a debate. So check this out.
Will very much result in people disagreeing with one another. And as a result of this, the viewer has a greater likelihood of feeling like he is represented by at least one particular argument. Meaning if Malika Andrews is playing the SJW role, if a guy comes in and provides an alternative view, at least SJWs and people that have alternative views.
Malika Andrews isn't playing an SJW role. Malika Andrews is literally a journalist and the host of the fucking show. That's it. She is a journalist and the host of the show. That's all.
Well, feel represented in this particular instance. But watch how Malika Andrews handles Kendrick Perkins' take.
Yes, Ime Udoka was wrong. We get that. His punishment, he deserved that, and whatever else follows, I hate it for him, but he put himself in this position. But why are the other people getting left off the hook?
Well,
that's the problem that I have right now. Everybody got to be held accountable.
So Malika Andrews would respond to this by quite literally kicking Perk off of her show.
I think that we need to circle back to what Shanae said, is that there was a investigation that was conducted by an independent law firm here. And I think that transparency is what will rule the day here. And so without having all of the information, it is unfair and irresponsible of us to go and to speculate on that.
So now,
because again, Kendrick Perkins, as Stephen A. Smith was doing was essentially, hey, why we don't know her name, but we know Ime Udoka is involved in this. Ime Udoka is the fucking head coach of the team. Y'all were never really gonna know who the fuck this other person was, other than to do what? Right? Other than to do what? What was, if you didn't know her name, then what? Right? If you knew her name, then what? What were y'all gonna do? If y'all knew the name of the lady who was involved in the Ime Udoka sex scandal, what was gonna happen? Right? So you got that going on where like you had Kendrick Perkins, you had Ime Udoka, I'm sorry, not Ime Udoka, but Stephen A. Smith, getting into some tips with her, but ultimately it's about the fact that this woman is existing in this space, and honestly kind of calling for a little bit of accountability in this space. And unfortunately for some of the sports bros, the accountability ain't what they really trying to hear, man. Hey, bro, I just want my sports, man. Like all this accountability, man. I don't really want to hear that shit, man. You hear it's odd, like kind of like, we're not even talking about politics. We're just talking about like these are the things that are happening within the sports, right? Like, yo, that's a personnel's issue. Here you have a journalist just pretty much just trying to keep everybody in line. Like, yo, man, like, all right, as a journalist, hey, we don't know what you talking about right now. We don't know if that's legit, man. We don't know if that's legit. So we gonna try to keep everything on the up and up. I know you probably think that's what it is. It's probably not that, but until we get some confirmation on that, we should probably ease up on that, because as the host and the journalist on the show, I need to keep the show going, and I also need to make sure we ain't getting fucking sued. Right? So you got that going on, but there's a little bit more.
You kind of see a trend here, bringing up unfortunate incidents in other human beings' pasts and kicking off people from her show / cutting them off if she completely disagrees with them. You need to sit down with people that you may share alternative views with and formulate a strong argument to try to disprove what they are saying.
But that's not what that show is about. And that's why you don't necessarily get this guy here. What's his name? Mike something. You don't get that because you think, as a consumer of sport, you think that all of these shows are debate shows, which they are not.
If every single sports debate show was,
Just stop.
then you would get no viewership at all whatsoever. Could you imagine if every time I wanted to make a video for you guys, my argument would be like,
come on, just stop. Or stop pointing the finger at the Boston Celtics for trading Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies.
or stop pointing the finger at the NBA for constantly saying that Victor Wembanyama is the greatest prospect since LeBron James.
Yeah. So, but you know what? It's not just this guy, man. It's not just this guy. I saw this all over Twitter. There's a story here. Let me see if I can pull it. I'm gonna pull this this video down because fuck this guy. But but yeah, I saw a story, man, on was it Awful Announcing or something? Yeah, awfulannouncing.com. And let me go to their original website. But essentially, they were talking about like viewers were viewers right to criticize Malika Andrews for bringing up Brandon Miller, who is the player who was being drafted that night. Whether she was wrong for bringing up Brandon Miller's involvement in a murder case. Now think about this for a second. Not even think about this. Let's just be for real. If you think an NBA team wasn't thinking about this particular prospect's involvement in a murder prior to the draft, when considering whether or not they wanted to take him or not, I got a motherfucking lake in the Sahara to sell you. Because that is fucking relevant, man. It's relevant. So for her to bring it up was relevant. Like, hey, he got this going on. How are teams thinking about this leading up to the draft? And it makes me think back to y'all remember when Kobe passed away, right? When Kobe passed away, I can remember that interview that Gayle King gave with that Gayle King had with Lisa Leslie. And when Gayle King brought up the Colorado incident with Kobe Bryant, there was a lot of dudes upset with Gayle King because she had the audacity and the temerity and the unmitigated gall to bring up that, like, yo, so, you know, Kobe did have this other thing going on. How do you think that would affect his legacy? Right. And it was a whole bunch of dudes, man. Not me. As a matter of fact, I can remember, like, and shout out to my boys, man. Shout out to my guys over at the Shop Talk podcast, man. But I can remember, like, we had a little back and forth about this. Like, this ain't the time to talk about that. And in much the same way with this Brandon Miller kid, guys were saying, this ain't the time to talk about that. This is his draft. And this was the most important night of his life. But it was relevant, right? When we think about Kobe Bryant, yeah, that might not be the first thing we think about when we think about Kobe Bryant, but that was part of his story, right? And you had a whole bunch of guys who were upset at Gayle King for even broaching the topic because they didn't want their idea of Kobe to be I don't know, besmirched or tarnished in some sort of way. They didn't want that for Kobe, right? Because Kobe had just passed, man. And like, nah, it's too soon. You can't talk about that right now. This ain't the time to talk about it. When is there ever the time to talk about it, right? When is anybody ever really paying attention to these things unless we're talking about these things at important times, right? Never mind the fact that Kobe Bryant had apologized to that woman and people were, going out of their way to, like, insult that woman again after he passed away and stuff like that. Like, it was, and then you got the conspiracy minded motherfuckers, and y'all know how I feel about them people. But yo, you had that thing going on. So with Malika Andrews bringing this thing up with Brandon Miller, it kind of reminded me of that time when Gayle King brought up the fact that Kobe Bryant had been accused of rape at a Colorado hotel, and when Gayle King brought that up with Lisa Leslie, niggas lost their mind. Niggas was up fucking set. Right? So we get this, like I said, I got this out of Awful Announcing because it was kind of crazy because on Twitter is where even I was getting people talking about, I'm a simp now, right? Here's the thing. I'm a simp because I was like, yo, it sounds to me like she did her fucking job. It's amazing how when you say, like, yo, the sports bros out here overreacting because she did her job, and then the sports bros actually fucking show up to prove your fucking point, right? That happened. That happened. But let me see. Where's my tab here? Where's my tab? Okay, so we're at Awful Announcing. I'm going to read the story here. It said, we wondered leading up to Thursday night's NBA draft whether ESPN would address the elephant in the room, acknowledging the controversy surrounding Alabama forward Brandon Miller, whose role in a murder investigation dominated the news cycle for weeks on end. Cleared of wrongdoing, Miller was not charged with any crime. However, his proximity to teammate Darius Miles on the night Jamia Janae Harris was fatally shot. The alleged murder weapon, which belonged to Miles, was retrieved from Miller's car hours earlier, raised questions, casting a dark cloud over Alabama's March Madness run. Obviously, the Charlotte Hornets, who drafted Miller with the second overall pick, weren't concerned about it, though it felt like only a matter of time until someone on ESPN's panel brought it up. That someone turned out to be Malika Andrews, who mentioned the scandal in passing during Thursday night's broadcasting. Andrews would later become the subject of harsh online criticism, with many viewers feeling it was unnecessary to pick at that scab, rehashing a painful incident from Miller's past that by all accounts wasn't his fault. And then they got a bunch of tweets, of course. Malika Andrews is such a weirdo for bringing that up on Brandon Miller's special night. Not Malika Andrews bringing up the criminal case of two men who are not Brandon Miller. She's playing the game of name association, hoping that whenever people hear the names of the two men on trial, they'll associate Miller with them. This roach is evil and must be stopped. Right. How dare this woman do her damn job? Malika Andrews quite literally bringing up Brandon Miller's name in a murder case minutes before the NBA draft for no reason. It was a reason for the shit, nigga. There was a reason for it. Saw Malika Andrews trending tonight, and I already knew why. I didn't even have on ESPN when Brandon Miller got drafted, but I knew she would bring up off the court criminal case. So if you knew that, why are you niggas acting like that? Right? Why are you niggas acting like that? And it's one of those things, bro. Like, I'm wondering, like, what it is. Like, there's this thing. There's as much as as much as there's people talk about the lack of accountability. We talk about the lack of accountability quite often. So many dudes talk about the lack of accountability that women have. They don't want to apologize for nothing. Saying sorry for a woman is hard as hell, right? All these things that dudes say. But here this woman is just essentially just doing her fucking job, right? Essentially doing her job, and dudes are upset with her for doing her job. I don't know how you watch the NBA draft with a player whose story, that particular story, was a big part of the season for the college, for the NCAA season. That was a big deal during that time. If y'all thought that shit wasn't going to come up during the NBA draft, I don't understand how the hell y'all are even sports consumers, right? I think a lot of this, and this is just me, I could be wrong. I think a lot of this just stems from the fact that here is a woman in a traditionally male space actually stating maybe her opinion. Actually, I don't know. You know what? Not even so much her just being a woman. I don't know if, well, yeah, I'm sorry. Her being a woman is important to this. I think that if this was a dude who was also doing this exact same thing, I don't know if he gets the same level of backlash that Malika Andrews gets for doing the same fucking thing. Right? So the fact that she's a woman isn't important to this. She's a woman in a male-dominated space. I think that because she's a woman in a male-dominated space, that, yeah, there's a lot of dudes who resent the fact that she's even there, and that she actually, like, had the temerity to, like, challenge the face of ESPN when she like, hey, bro, like, we not here to blame women, and whatever. I forget exactly all of the things that she said, but like, yo, you are out here advocating, like, why don't we know this woman's name, this, that, the other. And there was a whole bunch of people, man, dudes mostly, like, why don't we know this woman's name? And they kept pinning that on, yeah, there are reports that it was a consensual relationship, ignoring the fact that they're like, nah, this is a sexual harassment case, bruh. This isn't necessarily a consensual thing. It's a sexual harassment thing. And that's why y'all don't know her fucking name. And also, Stephen A. Smith should have fucking known better, because he is a journalist. He should have known better. So you got that going on. But yeah, man, the sports bros is mad. And if Malika Andrews is trending on Twitter, 9 times out of 10, y'all know is because she just really just did her fucking job. They mad that she did her fucking job. Real talk. So you got that going on. We got some comment. We got a comment here. Tony Arrington is in the chat, man. Oh, fist bump, my nigga. Yeah. Fist bump, my guy. Shout out to my man Tony, man. Real talk. It's been a while, bro. I ain't seen you in a minute, man. I hope you're doing good, brother. Real talk. But yo, man, you got that going on. So now, our next story, though. Whoo. No. But our next story, though, is quite interesting, though, man. Real talk. So, yeah, man. Umar Johnson, man. I gotta say, I did not have this on my bingo card for the year 2023. If you'd have told me, I would have been like out here in the world, in public, talking good about Umar Johnson, I'd have probably just been like, because real talk, man, y'all know how I feel about Umar Johnson, man. Y'all know I feel like Umar Johnson just be on some bullshit, man. Y'all know 90%. I'm one of those people, bro. I'm like, man, yo, like Umar, like he's a part of the motherfucking Hotep Hall of Fame, baby. He's a part of the Hotep Hall of Fame. As a matter of fact, do I still have that? Here we go. In the black community, pseudo-consciously based offenses are considered especially heinous. In the Yonk right, the dedicated misogynists who perpetuate frauds are members of an elite squad known as a special Hotep unit. These are their stories. This is who I think Umar Johnson is. I think Umar Johnson is like fucking Detective Benson of the goddamn he is Detective Benson or I think she's like Captain Benson now. I haven't watched SVU in quite some time, but I think he's Detective Benson in the whole scheme of things when it comes to hoteps, right? And so to see Umar Johnson trending for the things that he has been trending for the last few days, man, I gotta say, your man Spann is shocked, I say, right? So, well, shit, man. Let me just go ahead and pull it up. Let me just do that, because that's really what it all boils down to. Y'all need to see why Umar Johnson had people like your boy, like, well, I'll be goddamn, like straight up. Y'all gotta see it. So I'm gonna pull this up so y'all can see this right along with your boy. Here we go. So he was on. I'm sorry. Let me set this up. He was on a podcast called The Daily Wrap Up Crew, talking about a various number of different things, some of which was, your standard Umar Johnson fare. But then he said this sort of shit, and it like set the internet kind of on fire a little bit. So let me go ahead and play that.
Brings and the value of what a man brings in a relationship, and now there's a lot more rhetoric from our women that we hear is, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, right? So,
that's pain speaking, though.
Right.
Because most black women know they will never get a man. A black woman can have sex whenever she wants.
Right.
Because she's beautiful. She can have a bed mate, but to have a soul mate, she may never get. I have 2 daughters, 11 and 20, right? My oldest would be 21 this week. Statistically, right? There's a strong chance my daughter could be one of those. I hope she's not. She could be one of those who never get a husband, because only 1 out of 4 gets a husband. You see that? So when a black woman says, I don't need a man, that is a reaction to the reality that I may not get a man.
So why not preach? Because I understood, you're obviously against interracial relations when it comes to black men with with white women.
With all women. You should only be with the black woman.
And you will say, well, if you can't find a good woman in America, there's
somewhere else.
In Africa.
Absolutely.
So why not teach that same rhetoric to our women? Like if you feel
I tell sisters all the time, go to Africa. So I know sisters who marry. I just spoke with her sister. She invited me to the wedding. She just married a brother from the continent.
So, but instead of saying they will never get married,
I'll take sisters to Africa who married brothers they met in Africa.
Right.
So yeah,
I think there's plenty. I think there's obviously plenty of black men,
yes,
black women. So
and what I also tell black women, if
married,
you're going to go get you an African man from the continent,
right,
you're going to have to understand that the way in which you talk to black men in America will not be tolerated over there.
Why the fuck is it tolerated? It's not tolerated here. That's what we're trying to tell them.
Well,
and this is when niggas started getting in their feelings.
Over here, I want to say this to us, though. Because we try to act like the way sisters treat us doesn't have a history that we are not at least partly responsible for. Let's be honest. The black woman has had to hold down the black house by herself, although imperfectly. She's had to do it by herself since the mass incarceration of black males began in the 1970s. You understand me? Most of our children are raised by a single mother right now. And it has been that way for about 50 years. So when a sister says, I don't need a man, because she couldn't find one strong.
Also, just for some context, yo. When you say a single mother, essentially what you mean is a woman who isn't married to the father of her children. It does not mean that the father of their children are not involved in the children's lives. It just simply means that the mother and the father have not went downtown and got the paperwork and the marriage license to put it on paper to like, yo, this is a union of us, right? This is a union of us, and we are together, and therefore everything that comes from that, everything that comes from the marriage is legally binding. Right? There's a lot of people who haven't done that, but that does not mean that their fathers are not involved. Right? I want to make sure that we highlight that. Just because the fathers and the mothers are not married does not mean that the father is not in. It doesn't even mean that the father ain't even living in the house. It just means that they are not married. That's it.
Strong enough to hold her down. Or when you meet a woman and you say, sister, I'm strong enough to be your man. You ain't got to work or you ain't got to pay the bills or whatever. Pull back. I got you. And she can't do it because all the other men before you who disappointed her. So what I'm saying is, black men, we got to be patient with our women because we created that personality. We created that, and then we want to act like we didn't play a role.
We have to be held accountable for their poor selection.
No, you have to be held accountable. No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection. See, what you're saying, you're selecting a poor mate. And what I'm saying is they don't have much to select one, so of course you're going to end up with a poor mate. And why is she going to end up with a poor mate? Because we as black men are not raising black boys to be the men that our women need. We are.
And when I heard this coming from Umar, I'm just like, God damn. Like, seriously, I like, nigga, for real? This coming from Umar. Really, like, this fucking mind blown, all sorts of shit, nigga. It was like, yo, this nigga really just, and the niggas on the crew just like,
there's powerful niggardry at work here.
You had guys on that particular platform with Umar Johnson with the powerful niggardry and whatnot, and I really was like, yo, man, finally with Umar, just. Like, finally with Umar, right? Because y'all know how, like, with Umar, right? Y'all know, be like, man. And I mean, I know, like, broken clocks twice a day, the whole nine. I get that. I understand that. But, like, yo, man, like, he's spitting right. This nigga's spitting right now. Like, I'll be damned.
Not. They out there killing themselves right now. What we doing about it? Unemployed black males, what we doing about it? Pants sagging, weed smoking, what we doing about it? Black men are not raising black boys to be the men our community needs. That is 100% our fault. What I'm saying is she got a right to be angry with us. She got a right to be angry with us. We have not been on our job as black men. If the men are the providers, what have we been providing for our community? I'm not speaking you individually.
Yes.
Because you may be a damn good father. You may be a damn good father. You may be a damn good father, but guess what? What are we doing for the community? What are we doing for the children who don't have a father? You don't think the black woman got a right to be angry when she's been raising 2/3 of the kids by herself for 50 years? And the minute she raised her voice, we say she's not humble enough? She had to become masculine to survive the rape, the molestation, the domestic abuse. Are you telling me?
You can hear these niggas groaning as this shit is going on right now, right? You can hear these niggas groaning like, they ain't liking this shit. Right? And so here's the thing, right? So I can remember there was a time where the guy who really got me into podcasting, man, he who shall not be named, right? But the guy who got me into podcasting, man, who was a former mentor to me, there was a time where even he was doing this sort of shit, right? Where he had this thing called like Die Hood Rat Die or some shit, right? And essentially his thesis was the reason and like his reason for the conditions of the black community laid at the feet of hood rats or black women, because that's who we call hood rats, that it laid at the feet of black women for their poor choice in men, their poor choice in like their poor behavior, their attitudes, and things like that, and how we had to separate ourselves from these sorts of folk, right? We need to separate ourselves. It was almost like some, like, yeah, you got, it was almost on some shit like, yo, there's niggas in, the whole Chris Rock bit. There's niggas in there, black folks, and niggas have got to go. And we need to separate ourselves from these niggas, as opposed to, we should be reaching down to these niggas and helping them along the way, right? This was sort of the thesis of it. And I remember that was like, that was about maybe, it's been a while now, but probably about 10 years ago, right? Probably about 10 years ago. So like this sort of like rhetoric has really been like going on for quite some time. But if you've noticed, and this is the thing that, like, as a black male podcaster, I take quite a bit of offense to, is because of niggas like this, where like when they see a dude, or a black dude particularly, talking about him being a podcaster, these are the kind of niggas that they think about. Because these kind of podcasts with these sorts of attitudes dominate the space. So when you go on social media and people are talking about black podcasters or they should never gave you niggas podcast equipment and everything else, these are the kinds of niggas that they are talking about. Because all these motherfuckers be having these podcasts and they got significant followings, bro. They got significant followings. But all of these podcasts, they tend to dabble in the same sort of mundane, banal ass conversations about the condition of the black family, the condition of black relationships, the reason why black women don't deserve much, and all this other shit. Like the Kevin Samuels type niggas. Like these are the niggas who typically jump into the podcast, or not even that. I'm sorry. These are the dudes who get a lot of the attention, right? I don't. As long as I've been podcasting, I don't even know if these guys are the rule. I just know that like there's 1,000 podcasts like these. Right? There's 1,000 podcasts like these. But Umar wasn't finished with them, so I'm gonna go ahead and let some of this play some more.
You can't see how we created that?
I understand that, but she needs
if
to
we
be
was
more
loving
selective.
our women and taking care of our women, do you think she would be like that? That personality has a history.
If she's picking Pookie and Ray Ray instead of
you're making her a scapegoat.
No, she's picking a scapegoat.
No.
There's good
Can I ask you a
quality men
question?
that they ignore.
Why she even got it? Why is there even a Pookie in the selection?
You gotta ask Heaven.
No. I'm gonna tell you why there's a Pookie in the selection.
Wow.
Because black men have abandoned black boys and have allowed social media, white media, athletes, and rappers to raise them. That's why she with Pookie. If we never allowed Pookie to develop, she would not have a Pookie. If we're going to be men, the first thing we got to do is take responsibility for why our women feel the way they feel.
I can hear that.
I'm not saying that they're right.
He's saying he can hear that. He don't mean that. Right? He's saying he can hear that, he can feel that, but he don't mean that. Because like you got a whole bunch of dudes out here, bruh, who I can't tell you how often I've listened to niggas talk about how the women in their lives allow them to be men. Right? That the women in their lives don't allow them to be men. And it's like, bro, if you are a man, no one is allowing you to do shit. You just are. You're waiting on someone to allow you to be who you are. Are you really the leader that you proclaim yourself to be if you are waiting for someone to allow you to be who the fuck you say you are? Come on, bro. Let's keep it a buck. I've been saying that for years. The whole idea of what a real man is, what a real man is supposed to do. If you listen to the Spann report for some time, like, hey man, like nobody defines what manhood is for you but you. So now you saying that someone else is determining what your manhood should look like. No. You do that for yourself. But there's so many dudes when it comes to the accountability part, because that's essentially what Umar is bringing them to. The accountability. As much as there's so many dudes who are out here talking about how women don't want to be held accountable for certain things, it's a lot of dudes right now who don't want to be held accountable for not being the men that they should be. And this is why you're seeing so much pushback.
To disrespect, because even if a woman disrespects me, right? That still don't give me a right to disrespect her because she's still the queen of the community. Even if she not acting like it, I'm going to give her that respect. But when I hear brothers talk like this discourse we having now, we act like we don't understand.
No,
There's reasons for that shit.
I do understand. Women are so valuable. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think women ground men and help them, propel to the next level. I think men get further in life with a woman, right? But if I'm a hardworking man, but I'm only looked at as resources,
okay,
and then she's ready to jump on Tom, Dick, and Harry because he got flash, he's shining a little bit more, his access to money is quicker than mine. It's kind of hard to have that.
Well, no, one, I agree with you, but that's not all sisters.
No, it's not. It's
and if
not.
you're constantly running into that type of woman, then the problem is you because you're attracting a certain low vibrational energy. Why is
why
that?
not have that same energy for women? You just again you held
because
the man
we having a
responsible.
conversation as men.
Yeah.
But what about the women? But what about the women? Like nigga, really? Really? Y'all sitting up there having a conversation as dudes. But what about these women? What about them? Stop crying, nigga. Man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me play.
I got plenty of interviews with all women where I check them too.
All right.
But as a man, you should not be concerned about what I say to them. No. As men, we should be concerned of what we're going to do to produce a better generation of black males for tomorrow. That's the only, that is where we should be focusing.
Women bring the choice of life, right? We understand that, right? I can't have a child unless a woman agrees.
And she can't carry one if you didn't put it in her.
I agree with that 100% too, right? But whether or not, if you want that child or not, she can still make that decision. It's all
right. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes on like that, right? It goes on like that. But I'm gonna just say this, man. It was interesting to watch how, for one, like I said with Umar Johnson, a broken clock can be right twice a day. But also like to kind of watch how dudes was responding to Umar Johnson after this, because there was a sense of betrayal. These niggas felt betrayed that Umar Johnson had the temerity, the unmitigated gall, if you will, the unmitigated gall to actually challenge dudes on their ideas of what manhood means within the community, and whether or not they had any responsibility to the community outside of what they would do with their individual families, right? Because one of the first things niggas will always tell you is like, yo, I'm a good father. You know what I'm saying? I take care of my responsibilities. And you know, that's great, right? You're doing what you're supposed to do as a man, right? You're doing what you're supposed to do. However, if we're talking about the community at large, yeah, there were basketball coaches, there were football coaches, there were teachers, there were other people within the community who, even though he had no familiar connection to any of the young men and the young women within that community, he made sure that he made himself available to them. Like I'm old enough to remember that sort of shit. Even though like there were no doctors and no dentists and stuff like that within my community, there were still dudes who availed themselves to the rest of us, right? Who availed themselves to the rest of us. The kids who were growing up where their fathers weren't necessarily involved or weren't around or any in any capacity whatsoever, right? Those kids needed something. And you know, there's this sense that, you know, you don't have any responsibility to those. And I think that's something that's kind of changed over time, right? The other thing is this, is that the other thing is, damn it. I had it. It was right there. It was right there. No, but like, you know, there's this thing, man, where we talk about how like the neighborhood or our connections to the neighborhood they run deep, but we talk about our connections to the neighborhood in such superficial ways, man. Like, yeah, I go back and, you know, I see some of the homies, man, and they ain't necessarily doing good, man, but, you know, I make sure they see my face, you know, that sort of shit, man. Like, yeah, that's okay, but how are you really helping? Right? How are you really helping them? And, you know, like to kind of watch dudes like just go through this whole thing of like, yeah, I'm gonna bring it back because this is where I was going with it. As we watch some of this stuff here go on, what you can see is a bit of, and it's sort of like it's weird because it's like sort of like meme culture too, right? Sort of like meme culture, but there's this thing where dudes had their eye on the young lady when they were young. And they really liked this young lady. Maybe this young lady gave them the time of day. Maybe she didn't. Maybe they expressed how they felt about this young lady back in the day. And she reciprocated that feeling, or she didn't. However, chances are she probably didn't. And so now these dudes feel as though they're in a much better place, but whether it be financially, whether it be socially or whatever else, they're feeling themselves a little bit more now, right? And these women that they used to covet are not necessarily in a position, or better yet, not even necessarily in a position. These women aren't being held up on the pedestal that they used to hold them up on. So years go by, and these dudes are now resentful of these women who like, oh shit, I see you got your shit together. How about we go out? And now these dudes are resentful because they're like, yo, when I ain't had shit, bitch, you wasn't trying to fuck with a nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm hot, you all on me. You know, there's a lot of that energy there, right? There's a lot of that energy there. And that's what it sounds like is really coming through, is that like, I got to pay for this bitch making bad decisions. You know what I'm saying? Them ain't my kids. You know what I'm saying? Why I gotta deal with this bitch when she done deal with all this other, that's the energy that they're giving off. And because they're giving off that energy, it's like they feel betrayed by Umar for saying like, hey, even she can use a brother like you, even if it's in a non-romantic way. You can still be a benefit to a sister like that. You can still be a benefit to the community by being a benefit to a sister like that who has kids, who had babies by a dude that you thought was unscrupulous, who you thought was like not as desirable as you think of yourself to be, right? So it's like there's a lot of that in it, and like honestly, let's keep it a buck. A lot of the energy in a lot of these types of podcasts, a lot of that sort of energy is what they give off. It's like, yo, man, like these bitches wasn't really on me when I was a teenager, man, when I was really trying to be on them. Now I'm hot and like they ain't hot no more. Now the tables have turned and all this other shit. These niggas are out for revenge on these women, bruh. That's what it is. They are out for revenge on these women. And then they got to hit a shit from Umar, right? Who like Umar, who they thought was one of them. This is the thing. They thought that Umar was one of them, which is why they got so uncomfortable, which is why they were so like, they was like, they sitting in their seats, bro, like, they grunting and shit because they're like, man, fuck this nigga, man. Like, how dare this nigga? Right? And we saw it on social media, man. Like, you saw people on Twitter talking about how Umar was only doing this and he was saying this sort of shit because the single mothers are the ones that send kids to his school and he got to get the funding for his school, this, that, and the other, man. It's like, if that's how you feel, then I mean, shit, you might even be right. But also, broken clock being right twice a day, even your man Spann got to give it up and be like, yo, the nigga was spitting right here. Right? He done pissed off the podcast bros. Malika Andrews done pissed off the sports bros. Umar Johnson has pissed off the podcast bros. And that happened over the course of 5 days, right? We witnessed all the bros being pissed off in 5 days, man. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. Real talk. But yo, man, I'm gonna get on that. I ran my mouth for quite a bit. I didn't think I would be on this long tonight. But yo, before I get on and out of here, let me tell you guys how to get in touch with me here at the Spann Report. No, damn. Mrs. Spann Official. We are no longer the Spann Report. Spann Report Podcast Network, but this is Mrs. Spann Official. But let me tell you guys how to get in touch with me here at the Mrs. Spann Official Podcast and let your voice be heard. Go ahead and hit up that hotline at area code 313-288-0485. That's area code 288-0485. Leave those voicemail messages. Of course, those messages will get played here live on the show and responded to in kind. You can also email us here at feedback@thespannreport.com. That's feedback@thespannreport.com. Go ahead and leave those emails. Of course, those emails will get right here and reply to here live as well. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My name on both of those platforms is Mr._Spann. So go ahead and follow me there. Chop it up with your man Spann throughout the week. Also, there's a Mr. Spann fan page on Facebook, man. So you go ahead and follow me on on Facebook. If Facebook is your platform, man. So Mr. Spann fan page on Facebook. You can also leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and or Stitcher Radio. Those 5-star reviews are the ones, and Spotify. 5-star reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Leave us those 5-star reviews. And of course, those 5-star reviews are the ones that get right here live on the show. We really appreciate everybody who goes about the business of doing that. Doesn't cost you a dime, man. Just a couple minutes of your time to let everybody know why you're rocking with us over here at the Mr. Spann Official Podcast and the Spann Report Podcast Network specifically, man. In real talk. And visit our website at www.thespannreport.com. You can go there, watch replays of the show. You can donate to the show as often as you like, as much as you like. And of course, we really appreciate every dime over here at the Spann Report Podcast Network and the Mr. Spann Official Podcast specifically. And also, finally, you can watch the show on YouTube and on Facebook. We do this shit live. It's always live, man. It's always live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you want to be a part of the show, check us out on YouTube and Facebook. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the videos, comment on the shit. If you're on Facebook, comment on the joint, be a part of the Mr. Spann Official Podcast. I'm sorry, Mr. Spann Official fan page. And then, you get those podcasts. You can watch it live there and comment there as well. But we appreciate everybody who does that too. So, yeah, man, I'm going to get on up out of here. I will talk to you guys again. But until, of course, next time, fam. Peace.